Welcome back to Hype Girl Energy. I'm Catherine Lee. I'm super excited about today's guest, Stephanie Boyer, the CEO of Restart. Stephanie, thanks so much for joining today. I'm super excited to have you on.
Thanks so much for having me. Super excited to be here.
We're going to just dive right in. So you work for an amazing organization. Tell me, how did you get your start at Restart?
Yeah. Well, I got my start about 6 years ago. I was looking for sort of my next opportunity, but didn't really want to leave where I was because I loved my job there too, but needed a better work-life balance. And so it had to be the right thing for me to make the move. And so I just really was putting feelers out to people I knew. And several folks said, hey, Restart's looking for their new, CEO. And so I was like, okay, well, that could be interesting. So I had been very familiar with the organization in my previous roles for a number of years, and we certainly relied on them to send many folks to. So I knew how important and critical the work was, and knew that for me, I did want my next step to really be even more largely focused on the housing component than it had been before. And so I met with some of the board members, and from there, it just seemed like the right fit. So here we are 6 years later.
For those who don't know what Restart is, talk a little bit about what you all do.
Yeah. So we're a nonprofit that serves people across the Kansas City area metro. So we do work in Jackson County, Missouri, Wyandotte, and Johnson County, Kansas. So we serve households both at risk of and currently experiencing homelessness. And so that can be youth, unaccompanied youth, it can be older youth, it can be families, veterans, singles, every population. And we really do the work from the prevention side to street outreach to shelter to transitional to permanent supportive housing, with all the wraparound support services of employment and case management and access to healthcare and behavioral health and all the components that folks really need. So our goal with everyone we work with is to help them find that pathway back into stable housing.
How do people find you? And what's the first step when someone comes to you and needs help?
Yeah. So a lot of people call us. It kind of depends on the program, really, most people call. But we have very specific, part of our youth programming, we're part of the National Safe Place location. So Quick Trip and several of the libraries and other places are a National Safe Place partner, where a young person experiencing homelessness or in trouble or just doesn't know what to do next can just walk in and say, I need a safe place, and they know exactly what to do. So all their employees are trained to know exactly what number to call locally, and then there's a response to that. And so we get those kids into that program. So for young people, we get a lot of referrals that way. Some just call on their own. We get referrals from schools, from counselors, from teachers, churches, veterans. It can look very different where the referrals sort of come from. But most folks are usually calling in some capacity and getting connected to us. And so then we're usually just bringing folks into a program. So everything we do is really a program.
Okay.
And so even shelter is not the what people might imagine in their mind,
sure.
What they see on TV,
Yeah.
right? People don't line up at the door every day. There's not a bunch of cots in a room. They enter into a program, and they're usually with us for 3 to 4 months at a time. And so they don't have to leave every day. And so they have access to all that support and all the services and everything, which is what we've found is really the way to get people back into that stable housing situation, because they're really able to step out of the crisis sort of mindset and really start to focus on what do they need to do.
What do those programs look like? How many do you have, and what's the purpose of each one?
Yeah. So we run 17 different programs.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so focused around those different populations. So some of them are kind of that shorter 90 to 120 days, and then some of them are longer term. So we run a youth transitional housing program that those young people live with us for 12 to 18 months. So the goal of that is really to help them to really, we focus a lot on life skills and just developing them, preparing them to really be ready to live on their own.
For sure.
And then we have a youth rapid rehousing program too that's in the community, where they actually live in their own apartment, but we're providing case management and support to them for up to a 2-year period. So programs can look a little bit different based on what they are, right? It can be sort of a 30-day situation to 3 or 4 month situation to up to a 2-year situation in most things. Same with our veteran program. So, I think that's one of the things I love about it, is because everybody's situation is so unique.
For sure.
And everybody needs a little something different. And so being able to offer so many different types of programs and to so many different populations of people, we can really, we've got something to meet whatever their need is. So sometimes in our youth shelter, say a 16-year-old might come in there, they can only stay in there for up to 30 days. If there's not a plan and a safe place for them to go after that, they could potentially transition to our youth transitional living program, which they could live into for up to 18 months. So it's really nice to be able to have so many different things to kind of provide that next step of level of stability for folks if they need it.
For sure. Of those 17 programs, are those all run by in-house staff, or do you partner with outside organizations?
Yeah, so all of them are pretty much run by internal staff. So we have about 80 staff. It takes a lot of human capital to do this work and to really support people in the ways that they really need. But we certainly partner with a ton of outside organizations for additional wraparound support services, even for things like food, like harvesters we partner with for food. Giving the basics for hygiene items, Happy Bottoms for diapers, right? Like there's so many amazing partners in the Kansas City area that we are so grateful for and really rely upon, those partnerships to really make it happen.
If you have a staff of around 80, what does your day in, day out look like, and how do you take care of your people?
Yeah, it's hard.
I would bet it is.
Yeah. And they're scattered across really 3 main locations, so we're not even all in one building, right? So that can be a little challenging in itself too. But having an awesome leadership team, is really, rely, of course, on our leaders really leading those teams, each of those teams in those different kinds of areas to really, support the day-to-day, of what that looks like for folks. And us just all regular meeting too, just to make sure that we're supporting each other. We know what's going on across the organization and across programs. It's one of the things I love about our team too, is no matter what position they're in or what program they're in, when something's going on and we need a little extra help over here, everyone's always willing to just jump in and do whatever's needed, which, I love and I think makes just a really great, team dynamic. I think people really feel then like they know they're supported, that if they need extra help, they can reach out for it and folks respond to that. So
if you're helping take care of your people who are taking care of those in need, what do you do to take care of yourself?
Yeah, that's a hard one.
Balance, I feel like, is becoming a harder and harder thing for people to find.
Yes, it is. There's so many just demands upon the day, right? Both personally and professionally, that it just does become really hard. Just really making time. So as we were talking earlier, travel, vacation, getting away is definitely a big one for me. I find myself needing to do that more often than ever. I'd say over the last few years, just needing to, take some time away. Definitely doing that. Spending time outside. I love to be outside and be active, and so that's a really important one. So winter's always hard for me in that aspect. So it's staying connected to people. And to a network of people. There's so many, just great people across Kansas City, so many that I still feel such a strong connection to through Centurions program. So making sure I'm staying plugged in and connected, you know, in some of those groups and with people, you know, having great conversations and partnerships, I would say, you know, is another one that really, yeah.
You do a lot, obviously, with other folks, other leaders. Who do you tap to when you need a backup or some extra like support or advice? Like, who's your person, either inside the organization or outside the organization?
I think it varies a little bit, depending on sort of what it is or the time that it might be. So I had the honor to have a really amazing executive coach last year through a pro bono situation, and she was in California, and she was amazing. And so I'm getting ready to tap her again.
Love it.
Because I've been feeling like, you know what, I really need this extra support right now. And so definitely, you know, that's one. I think just, you know, I also, I go to therapy regularly, okay? I think everyone should have a therapist. So if you don't, get one, no matter what's going on in your life. And so we were actually just talking about balance and what that looks like, right? And and I was saying how important it really was for me to be and to stay connected to just people who share, you know, the same sort of passions, vision, just want to see good happen in our community, right? It doesn't have to be exactly like what I'm doing, but where do we share those things at? And being intentional about really spending more time with people like that, whether one-on-one or in a small group, is really important. And I was just saying that, you know, sometimes because of your day-to-day work, and it's like, well, I really should be meeting with like a potential donor or funder or someone like that, right? Instead of, or doing something for our team or these other things, you can just get pulled in so many directions. But those connections really are what, like, also just really fill me, right?
Yes.
And give me the energy that I need to just be like, all right, we can do this next thing, right? And keep going. So I think it is one of those things that I think I'm always struggling with, you know, and always trying to realign what that looks like. And so I think it is important to find those things for you that help to do that, and make sure that you are scheduling some time for those things.
I feel like you have your head on your shoulders, right? You kind of have a good grasp on like what you know you need to do, who you know you need to tap. What does leadership look like to you? Because obviously you're running this organization, and as a CEO, you know, leadership is a constant conversation. It's an act, but what does it look like to you?
I think it is action, and I think it is also really investing in and preparing the people on your team to be leaders, right? Like, you of course have the leader of the organization, right, where you're really overall responsible for like setting strategy and culture and all of these things, right? But as I tell my leadership team all the time, like, that none of that really happens without all of them, right? So I think it's really important to invest in our entire like leadership and our entire organization, right? That everyone there has the potential to be a leader, right? And so giving people opportunity for that, and investing in them in the right ways. And I think that's one of the things that we love to do too, just within the culture of our organization, is to say, allow people the opportunity to sort of like take on a new project or a new task, right? And like to develop those opportunities. You know, but along with that also comes like, sometimes you have to make tough, really hard decisions, right? And so I think communication to that, right? Helping people understand why, what's behind it, I think really matters too, right? So keeping people informed, you know, along the way, really just building up, you know, the entire leadership of the organization, and, you know, is really critical.
Obviously, this video series is all about female energy. If you could give advice to your younger self or younger female, what would it be?
Do not let your doubt hold you back. I think sometimes early for me in my career, I got into the criminal justice world,
Okay.
right? And so doing like behavioral health, social work type related things, but in a criminal justice field, and it's predominantly male, right? And so you're in a lot of rooms where your voice can easily sort of be silenced, or you're in the minority. Also, that was not necessarily a culture that really wants to hear what a social worker or
Totally.
or a behavioral health person really has what to say about this, scenario or situation. So I think just, being confident and just not being afraid to, really put yourself out there and to take on things, right? To say, within that, I knew I loved that work so much that I was doing an internship initially there, and I was finishing school, and I was like, well, I really want a job like doing this, right? So I wrote a grant and made myself a job, right? So
You wrote a grant.
Yep.
What was the grant?
It was actually to the Health Forward Foundation here locally. Just a small $75,000 grant, right? And so I worked with the jail and the court and said, here's this position that I think what I've seen would really be helpful to the folks that are going through these treatment programs and all of these things. They really need someone supporting them and kind of coordinating everything. And I think we could have a lot more success. And so we wrote the grant and we got it. And so, so I always tell when I talk to students all the time, I'm like, if you have a desire and a passion for a job and you're not, like, it's not there, like, make it, like,
Incredible.
be there, right? Like,
Oh my gosh.
so, that was, it was a lot of fun, and I'm so glad that, I was scared to death, right? Because
Anyone
I was
would be.
also like,
Yeah.
I don't know, I just made this up, right? But it was certainly a gap, and so, I ended up spending 10 years at the city, working up to the deputy court administrator in that field. We built that program a lot. So when I left, there's still there's about a dozen people now that are employed, right? We just kept writing grants and we just kept building the program and building it more and more, right? So, so just do it.
So your career then is taking you on both sides of the spectrum. Like, you've seen the nonprofit side, you've seen the for-profit side. What do you think Kansas City's missing?
I think if I had to pick one thing that I feel like right now we're missing is just unity at all levels, like around one particular issue, right? Now, whether it could be like education, housing, mental health, like whatever, right? Those are like always the big three for me, because I feel like they're the like triangle of the foundation.
And you see all three in your day-to-day.
Yeah, absolutely. And how important they all are, right? And the intersectionality between it. And so, I think from the people to organizations to political, right? And the political will there to be behind, like, let's get on board with whatever it is, the strategy that we're going to push forward here, right? And rally the people. For the support of that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think back to several years ago when like early childhood education was like, on the table, right? And it's like, it wasn't supported, right? And
which is crazy because our world starts with our youth.
Yeah. And it's like, man, why did that not get across the finish line, right? And so I think it does just take this like unity across so many different spectrums around those things. And so I think, more leaders across all those levels coming together on some of these major topics that impact us all.
What do you think would be required to get the leaders to the table to have those conversations?
I don't know. I think it has to start with a leader asking them to come to the table that's highly respected, I think, by people, right? So I think back to another project, the crisis center that I was able to be a part of. And in that, right, one of our judges at a time I worked at the court came to me and had seen this crisis center in San Antonio. And he said, we need one of these in Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
How can you help me get one? I was like, okay. So we sat down and we made a list of who we thought should be at the table, right? And we thought about what different kinds of people from what different areas, like police, fire, emergency room, hospitals, everywhere where we knew folks were touching.
Mm-hmm.
And we made a list of like people that we thought would be in support of a project like this. And so, but throughout that whole entire project, it was his leadership. And at the time, Councilman Scott Wagner was sort of the city council like leadership in that. And it was very interesting to watch because when those two folks came together on a common like goal and mission,
Mm-hmm.
and they asked people to come to the table and have this conversation, everyone showed up, right? And that group stayed together for several years working on this project and putting together and doing all the research, gathering all the research, designing the program, determining what kind of staffing it would need, what size did we need here in Kansas City. We were planning for this to happen. We had no idea how it was going to happen, right? But everyone was so committed to making it happen that they committed time, and these were all very busy people, right? But they all committed the time to do that. And we were really intentional about everybody that was at that table and included the Department of Mental Health and like all levels of people. And the opportunity for $20 million got presented to the Department of Mental Health, and they recommended our project for it.
Amazing.
Right? And so it was like, it really taught me just the power of like, first of all, starting with with leadership who was highly enough respected that people were going to come to the table,
Mm-hmm.
and then inviting people to that table who, who believed in it too.
Absolutely.
Right? And then being really intentional about all those different people and what can happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it really starts with the leadership of who can ask the right people to come to the table.
If you could make one thing happen for Restart this year, what would that one thing be?
Oh gosh, win the lottery? No. Every time I play, I'm like, Lord, I promise I'll do good with it. Okay, just let me have it. No, if I could wish one thing, I think it would be a brand new building. We've been in this like phase of like, we've launched a capital campaign. We've tried to close on 2 buildings, like for various reasons, like it has not gone through. And now, of course, with everything going on, we're like, what should we be doing? Is this the time to do this, or is this a time to sit and sort of see how some of these things unfold? But we're in a 100-plus-year-old building. We have a lot of challenges in it. We've run a lot of different programs in it. We've done our best to, put programs where it can best fit, but it's not ideal.
Mm-hmm.
And the building struggles to represent all the levels of like dignity that we want people to feel when they walk in there.
Yeah.
Right. And so we see such a transformation happen just when people come in and they like know they have a place to sleep. They know they have 3 meals a day. They know they're safe. They don't have to leave, right? Just a weight is lifted off of them. And, but man, we'd love for it to be in a much more beautiful space than what it is in now. So a really awesome building would be the wish.
How can the Kansas City community support Restart?
Yeah. Well, they could check us out on our website, restartinc.org. Come down and visit us. So every month on the second Thursday of each month at 10 o'clock, we host an open coffee and conversation to the community.
Okay.
So we started doing it a couple years ago, and I love it. It's just a way to invite folks in to say, come in, learn more about what we do, come see it, and so it's been really great. It varies how many people come each time, but it's a really great way for folks to really kind of understand. So if you're unsure about, what we're really doing, what's really going on with homelessness in our community, whatever your curiosity is, I encourage people to come. So I think that's one of the greatest ways. When we can get people down for a tour and conversation, you know, folks usually then have lots of ideas about how they can plug in, right?
Amazing.
So they might know people that can help us with certain donations of things, or they have a talent or a skill they could help bring in some way, or just leveraging different things. And so, you know, I think that's a great way. So volunteering is another one. We always encourage folks, like, it's a great way too to just kind of come in and start to understand, you know, what's really going on, understand a little bit more about what we do, who we serve. So volunteering is another one. So of course, giving any funds that you can,
For sure.
but also hosting like donation drives, things like that. So
What do you guys take?
So blankets, towels, sheets, pillows, like, are very common things that we use. And as folks move out into their new place, they often take those things with them. So we're constantly replenishing those things and what that looks like. So also underwear is a big one, right? So we get sock donations from Bombas Socks. So if you've ever wondered, they actually do what they say.
Amazing.
Which is awesome. So, but you know, it's pretty life-changing for someone when they can walk in and have brand new underwear and brand new socks to put on. So, so that's another big one. So yeah, so hosting donation drives, things like that. Invite us in to talk to, you know, your work or your book club or your church, or, you know, whatever it is. You know, we welcome those opportunities too, to just connect to more people, you know, and share more about, you know, our mission and what we're trying to do. So
Finish the sentence. My superpower is.
I guess I would probably have to say bringing people together. Sort of always been like the mediator, if you will, I think, with people in my life, of just like, how do we come together? Like, there's a problem here to be solved. Like, let's all come to the table and like figure out how to solve it, right? So always like to be very solution focused. And so I feel like that sort of bringing people together and mediating things has probably sort of always been one of my strong suits.
It's a great skill set to have.
Yeah.
Well, Stephanie, thank you so much for joining. It was a pleasure talking to you, learning more about Restart, your impact on the community, and just your life as a leader in the Kansas City community.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It was great to be here.